a banger, a goal that just is out of this world. And when you look back in MLS history, the same few goals are shown as like promos, right? The ones that you'll never forget. You've got the Balboa bike, which we've covered before, the Henri Olympico, De Rosario's free kick. But to me, none stand out more vividly than Taylor Twellman's playoff bicycle kick. I remember watching this live as a kid, going outside and then practicing bicycle kicks. That's how vividly this sits in my brain. This goal meant more than just a positive result, but one that gave hope that Gloria may finally come back to New England. The date is November 8th, 2007. The conference finals are among us. The New England Revolution, second place Eastern Conference finishers, whose path we have covered in our last history episode. Go check that out if you haven't already. They took on the Chicago Fire, who finished fourth in the East and got past DC United in the conference semis to get to this point. Coming into the playoffs, Chicago, decent season, led by goal scorers Chad Barrett and Chris Rolfe, who had 8 each, and were headlined by superstar Cuauhtemoc Blanco, who we also covered his time in Chicago. Check that out if you haven't seen that one. He led the team in assists that year. New England, on the other hand, had a striker that nobody could stop in Taylor Twellman, who was catching assists left and right from midfielder Steve Ralston. So much so, he was on fire, that Chicago came out the day before the game and made it very clear, we will not let Taylor Twellman beat us. The history of these two clubs, specifically in the playoffs, have been covered pretty extensively to this point, but to recap, Chicago Fire, 3 MLS Cup final appearances, winning 1 in their expansion season in 98, and then losing in 2000 to Sporting KC, and 2003 to the LA Galaxy. New England, on the other hand, were not as fortunate, making it to 3 separate MLS Cup finals, including the 2 ones previous to this story in 2005 and 2006, also adding in 2002. They were struck by the bad luck bug and could not get over that hump. In 2007, they hoped that their luck would finally change, and Taylor Twellman gave them just that little bit of belief. He and his team kicked off the game knowing that 1 goal in this one-legged affair could mean yet another chance at glory for the New England side. Twellman specifically had a chip on his shoulder. Pundits all over the country were questioning his ability to get it done in big moments. On that night, he was determined to prove them wrong, and prove them wrong he did. And against no better team than Chicago, one who grew to be a bit of a rivalry for New England to this point. In just the 2 years prior to this game, the teams played each other 9 times in all competitions, with Chicago having a slight advantage in the head-to-head, but New England with the more important games, including a PK shootout win in the playoffs the season before. But this time, the game meant even more, as New England felt that this was their year and nothing would stop them, not even a cursed Easter bunny. The game kicked off on a freezing cold Thursday night, and the quest for the MLS Cup final was on. Now, for a game as exciting as this played out to be, it was relatively quiet for the majority of the half, until New England was awarded a throw-in in the 38th minute. Steve Ralston took the throw short, and the ball was laid back to him for a first-time service into the box. Everybody knew what was going to happen. Even Taylor Twellman said that once we got a throw-in from 28 yards or in, I was going to go earn my paycheck. I knew what was happening. But they just left him and him alone in the box, being guarded by center back Desan Robinson and Logan Pause. This 2v1 aerial service seemed impossible for the 5'11" Taylor Twellman to win, but impossible was never a thought to him. The windy night caused the service to move in the air, and both Twellman and Robinson mistimed their jumps. The ball struck the head of Taylor Twellman and flew straight up into the air. At that point, there was no second guessing. There was no even thinking. He set his body up to do the spectacular, knowing it was either going to come off brilliantly or somebody was going to get hurt. He jumped into the air and started to twist as the 2 Chicago defenders tried their best to throw their bodies in front of the ball. But it mattered not, because somehow, some way, Taylor Twellman squeezed the ball between the 2 defenders, struck it with inch-perfect accuracy, and as the world watched the ball fly into the bottom corner of the goal, they knew they just witnessed something spectacular. He jumped up and sprinted away, pumping his fist, screaming, "F yeah!" before enjoying a strong embrace with coach Paul Mariner. During an interview, play-by-play announcer on the day, Dave O'Brien, mentioned, "When you give up a goal like that to a player that you publicly claimed you were not going to allow score or beat you on the day, it knocks the wind out of your sails." And boy, did it. Chicago from that point could only muster a few shots from distance and really couldn't get much else going, resulting in the New England Revolution taking home the Eastern Conference title in 2007. Taylor Twellman put it best. There are goals that you score, and there are goals that you dream of scoring. Everybody's dreamed of scoring a goal like that, and anyone who tells you otherwise is full of it. And as a player myself, I can tell you that dream has crossed my mind. Not only did Taylor score the goal of every kid's dreams, but he did it in one of the biggest stages in American soccer at that time. It was the goal that took them to the finals, where they would come agonizingly close to finishing the job they had spent 10 months setting up for. While it did not win them the big prize, it was a goal that will be forever remembered in MLS history, both in new fans and in lifelong